You've been a prisoner of war for 2 years and 7 months. You stopped counting the days around month 6. You stopped counting the months around month 14. Now you count in seasons: wet season, dry season, wet season, dry season. This is your 5th dry season on Palawan Island, and you're starting to think it might be your last. You're 23 years old. You were 20 when they captured you at Bataan in April 1942. You weighed 170 pounds then. You weigh about 120 now, maybe less. You haven't seen a scale in 2.5 years. You haven't seen a mirror either, but you know what you look like from the way the other men don't look at you. Sunken cheeks, visible ribs, skin the color of old leather stretched over a frame that used to play baseball. There are 150 of you at Camp 10A, Puerto Princesa. You build an airfield. That's your purpose. That's why you're alive. You fell trees, cleared jungle, hauled coral, crushed it into gravel by hand, and poured concrete for a runway that stretches 1,530 yards across a tropical island so that Japanese aircraft have somewhere to land. You do this barefoot, wearing a loincloth, with improvised tools and one wheelbarrow shared between 150 men. When the American bombers come and crater the runway, you fill the craters the next day. Then they bomb it again, then you fill it again. You're building something so your enemy can destroy it so you can build it again. The absurdity stopped being funny around month 4. The camp commander is Captain Kojima. The men call him the Weasel. He's small, precise, and indifferent to suffering in a way that isn't cruel exactly. It's administrative. Your labor. When labor breaks, you replace it. The guards under him are worse. Lieutenant Sato runs the daily operations. The men call him the Buzzard. He doesn't need a nickname to be dangerous, but having one helps you pretend he's a character in a story instead of a man who decides whether you eat. Your rations are 1 mess kit of rice per day. The rice is Cambodian and full of weevils. You eat the weevils because they're protein, and protein is the difference between standing up tomorrow and not standing up. You get 1 canteen cup of soup, which is kamote vine boiled in water. Sweet potato leaves. It tastes like warm nothing. If you can't work, they cut your rations by 30%, which means they cut warm nothing by 1/3 and expect you to survive on the remainder. There's a Marine named Mac who sleeps on the pallet next to yours. He's from Des Moines. He was 21 when they took Bataan, and he's 23 now, same as you. He was bigger than you before all this, and he's still bigger, which means he's starving faster because a larger body burns more fuel. He talks about Iowa in the dark, cornfields, his mother's kitchen, a girl named Ruth who wrote him a letter every week until the letters stopped coming, which was about 18 months ago. He doesn't know if she stopped writing or if the Japanese stopped delivering. He assumes she's still writing. You let him assume that because the alternative is a conversation neither of you has the calories for. Mac is the reason you get up most mornings. Not because he inspires you. Not because he gives speeches. He just gets up first and hands you your mess kit and says another day, and you say another day, and that's the whole ritual. It's not much. It's everything. You tell yourself you'll be rescued soon. MacArthur said he'd return. That was 2.5 years ago. You heard he landed on Leyte in October, which is 600 miles north of here. 600 miles might as well be 6,000 when you're on an island nobody's coming to. But the American bombers have been hitting the airfield regularly since October, and the guards have been nervous in a way you haven't seen before. More patrols, more barbed wire, more of them watching you with expressions that aren't anger or contempt, but something closer to calculation. You tell yourself the airfield keeps you alive. As long as you're useful, they need you. As long as there are craters to fill, you have a reason to exist. The math is simple. Labor equals life. You've believed this for 2 years. December 14th, in 1944. They wake you at 2 in the morning. That's wrong. Normal wake-up is at dawn. The guards are already dressed and armed, more of them than usual. You count 50, maybe 60. That's almost 1 guard for every 2 prisoners. The ratio has never been that close before. You look at Mac. He looks at you. Neither of you says anything. They send you to the airfield for the usual crater repair. You work through the morning. The guards stand closer than normal. They watch you differently. Not like overseers watching labor, like men watching something they're about to throw away. Around 11 o'clock, they halt work and march you back to camp. No explanation. No midday break at the airfield. Just back. You line up in the compound. The sun is brutal. 87 degrees. Humidity so thick it feels like breathing through a wet cloth. The OP-38 appears overhead. Air raid alarm. The guards shove you toward the shelters. The shelters are trenches. 5 feet deep, 4 feet wide, about 150 feet long, covered with coconut logs and palm fronds and dirt. You've been in them before during real air raids. The planes always pass. You always come out. You file in with Mac and roughly 50 other men into Shelter A, shoulder to shoulder. The trench smells like damp earth and sweat, and the particular odor of men who haven't had enough food or water in months. The P-38 passes. The all-clear doesn't come. At 1400, a second alarm sounds. Lieutenant Sato appears at the entrance to the compound. He's calm, almost cheerful. He says 7 words that you don't understand at first because your brain refuses to process them. Americans, your working days are over. You tell yourself it's just another drill, that the alarms are real, that the guards are being cautious because the bombers have been hitting harder lately and everyone is on edge. You tell yourself this even though Sato is smiling and Sato never smiles. 5 Japanese soldiers walk toward Shelter A carrying buckets. You can see them through the gaps in the coconut log roof. The buckets are full of liquid. You know what it is before you smell it. Aviation gasoline, the kind you've been pouring into the cracks in the runway for 2.5 years. You know the smell the way you know your own sweat. Sweet. Chemical. Wrong. They pour it into the shelter entrance. The liquid rolls down the earthen floor between the standing men like a slow creek. It soaks into boots and bare feet and the hems of rotting trousers. The men near the entrance try to push back, but there's nowhere to go. You're packed 50 deep in a trench 4 feet wide. Someone says, "Oh God." Someone says nothing at all. 2 soldiers throw lit torches through the opening. The gasoline ignites and the world becomes heat and light and sound. The flames don't creep, they erupt. The coconut logs and palm fronds above you catch in seconds, and suddenly the roof is fire, and the floor is fire, and the air is fire, and men are screaming in a register you've never heard a human voice reach. This isn't pain. This is something past pain. Something the body does when it's already dying and the brain hasn't caught up. Men rush the entrance. Machine gun fire drives them back. The ones who make it through are on fire. The guards shoot them, or bayonet them, or beat them with clubs. Grenades come in next, then dynamite. The trench shakes and dirt falls and someone grabs your arm, and you can't tell if they're trying to save you or trying to have something to hold on to while they die. Mac is next to you. He grabs your shoulder and shoves you toward the far end of the trench. There's a tunnel there. You dug it weeks ago, you and Mac and a few others, an escape route under the barbed wire that you never thought you'd use for this. The tunnel opening is covered by 6 inches of dirt. Mac tears it open with his hands. You go through. The tunnel is barely wide enough for your shoulders. The earth around you is warm from the fire above. You crawl on your stomach for 20 feet and come out on the other side of the fence. The cliff is right there. 50 feet down to a rocky beach and the sea. You don't climb down, you fall. Your body hits rocks and coral, and you feel something in your shoulder give. But the pain is secondary to the fact that you're not on fire. You're alive, and you're not on fire, and that's the entire contents of your mind. You press yourself into a crevice in the coral. Above you, you can hear it. The shooting, the screaming, the sound of men burning. Douglas Bogue, a Marine sergeant who lands near you, will later describe the smell that reaches the beach as the stench of burning flesh. He's right. It's sweet and chemical and wrong in a way that food smells are right. Your body knows the difference between a campfire and this. You will never unknow it. Mac didn't make it through the tunnel. You don't see him come over the cliff. You wait. Not you watch the others who made it down. 9 men from your shelter reach the beach. Japanese soldiers appear at the cliff edge with rifles. They shoot down at the rocks. They throw grenades. Some of the 9 go still. Some go into the water. You go into the water. Puerto Princesa Bay is 5 miles across. You swim it. You swim it with a dislocated shoulder and cuts from the coral and burns on your arms, and the knowledge that Mac is dead somewhere above you in a trench that's still burning. The water is warm, 80 degrees. There are sharks. Rufus Smith, a Marine sergeant swimming 100 yards from you, will be bitten on the left arm and shoulder and will keep swimming because the alternative is going back. You swim for hours. The far shore is a dark line that doesn't get closer for a long time. When it finally does, you crawl out of the water onto a mangrove beach and lie in the mud. You're naked. You lost your clothes in the water or the fire or the tunnel. You can't remember. You're shaking even though it's 87 degrees because your body is in shock, and shock doesn't care about the weather. A Filipino man with a bolo knife appears out of the jungle. He looks at you, burned, bleeding, skeletal, naked, shaking in the mud of a mangrove swamp. He offers you a canteen of water and says 4 words. "Hey Joe, you POW?" You say yes. He takes you to guerrillas, Nazario Mayer's Palawan Special Battalion. They give you clothes, food, water, and a place to sleep that isn't a trench. They tell you other men have come out of the water. Not many. You ask how many. They say they're still counting. 11. Out of 150 men, 11 survive. Elmo Deal makes it out with 2 gunshot wounds and 20 bayonet stab wounds. Eugene Nielsen swims the 5 miles with bullets in his leg and lacerations across his scalp and ribs. Joseph Barta hides in the jungle for 10 days. He's treated by a local healer who applies boiled guava leaves to his wounds with a gray chicken feather. 139 men die in the trenches, on the wire, on the cliff, or on the beach. Some burned, some shot, some bayoneted, some all 3. Mac is one of the 139. You don't know exactly how he died. You don't want to know. He was from Des Moines. He talked about cornfields and a girl named Ruth. He handed you your mess kit every morning and said, "Another day." That's the whole eulogy. There isn't a longer one that would be more true. You tell yourself you'll forget. That the screaming will stop. That the smell of gasoline will eventually just be the smell of gasoline again. You're wrong about all 3. On January 6, 1945, a Navy PBY Catalina flying boat lands at Brooks Point, 25 miles south of Puerto Princesa. It picks up 7 of you. The flight covers 850 miles over Japanese-held territory to Morotai Island. You land at an Allied headquarters where men in clean uniforms offer you ice cream and ask what happened. You tell them, they write it down. 24 days later, on January 30th, U.S. Army Rangers and Filipino guerrillas raid the Cabanatuan prison camp on Luzon. 522 POWs are liberated. The order to move on Cabanatuan came directly from your testimony and the testimony of the other 10 men who swam out of Puerto Princesa Bay. Major Robert Lapham told command that 500 Americans at Cabanatuan were in immediate danger of another Palawan. They moved in 30 days. 500 men are alive because 11 men crawled out of a burning trench and swam 5 miles through shark water to tell someone what happened. You tell yourself that matters, that the 522 at Cabanatuan balance the 139 at Palawan. The math should work. It doesn't. It never does. They tried the Japanese officers after the war. Lieutenant General Terada, the man who signed the kill order, got life in prison. Master Sergeant Deguchi got a death sentence that MacArthur commuted to 30 years. On December 31st, 1958, a general amnesty released every remaining Japanese war criminal from Sugamo Prison in Tokyo. 13 years. The men who burned 139 Americans alive served 13 years. Now, in 1952, a recovery team excavated the campsite. They found 123 skeletons, some still with tissue, piled 4 and 5 high in the trenches. The remains were transferred to Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery near St. Louis, Missouri. They share a mass grave. Most of them were never individually identified. You go home, you get a job, you marry a woman who doesn't know what happened to you, and you never tell her the real version. You tell the short version, the one that fits in a sentence. I was a prisoner in the Philippines. I got out. That's technically true. It leaves out the gasoline and the trench and the cliff and the 5-mile swim and the 139 men who didn't get out. It leaves out Mac. You live another 60 years. You have children who grow up knowing their father was in the war. They don't know what that means. So you don't explain because explaining means remembering, and remembering means the smell comes back. And once the smell comes back, you're 23 again, standing in a trench on Palawan Island while someone pours gasoline through the roof. Some nights you wake up and your hands are moving, digging, clawing at the sheets the way you clawed at the tunnel opening. Your wife asks if you're okay. You say you're fine. You say it was just a dream. She goes back to sleep. You don't. 150 men stood in those trenches on December 14th, 1944. 139 of them never stood up again. 11 crawled out. You're one of the 11. You don't feel lucky? You don't feel grateful? You feel like a man who was supposed to die in a hole on a tropical island and somehow didn't. And you've spent every day since then trying to figure out why you're still here and Mac isn't. You never figure it out. That's not a mystery with a solution. It's just a fact you carry, like a stone in your pocket, every single day for the rest of your life.